Let's get going. So welcome everybody on this very momentous day in our country. Welcome you all here to Rotary, and again, Dr. Collada, we're so glad that you are here with us today, and don't take the numbers. Boy, we're climbing rapidly. Don't take numbers personally. So hopefully everybody hits record and can on the other stuff, and everybody can enjoy you here today. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And you all know that sometimes I have moments when we do the Pledge of Allegiance. So anybody that wants to unmute and say the words with me today, I would really appreciate that. So unmute away, and hopefully I don't mess up our syncing up for our meeting. So with that, I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America
and to the
republic
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Boy, that was unique.
It's almost like we're together, right? All right. Let's move to Patricia Callahan Bowman for our words of inspiration today. And I'm looking.
Oh, she's coming. She just entered the waiting room.
Okay. Okay.
We'll really put her on the spot as soon as she gets in.
She'll launch immediately.
Can't see her.
Patricia, we're gonna activate you as soon as you're ready for the invocation and our words of inspiration today. Patricia?
Patricia, did you connect to your audio? We can't hear you.
Uh-oh. Let's give her one more minute. Patricia, can you hear us?
I can now.
Did you can we put you, can I hand it, may I hand it off to you to do your words of inspiration and our invocation today?
Yes, I would love to do that. I can't get my video part up, but I will be a talking voice.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
Wonderful. What I like to do when I do the invocation is I like to do our four-way test because I think it's good to hear it, and that we're no longer all in the same space where we have it up in front of us. So here is my inspiration for the day. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Appreciate that very much. So next I'd like to welcome our guests. And Shane, you noted that you had Mark Mills here with you.
Yes, my guest is Mark Mills. Hi, Mark. Mark is married to Jen, who is one of my race walking buddies. They moved here from Austin a few years ago, and Mark is retired from an industry that I don't understand at all. It's semiconductor. So he's super smart, and please join me in welcoming Mark to our club meeting.
Welcome, Mark. Thank you for joining us today. And Allison, is Allison Kelly here? I don't see her on the participant list. She was, pardon me? Pardon me?
So I have a contact for the hotel, excuse me, the hotel project for Marion County. And they're doing homeless hoteling, sorry, so they can someone can change it. It doesn't do any good. And then Julie at Union Gospel Mission is the person to connect to take. He said they take all the food we wanted to give them.
Is Jane on the phone with someone?
Like any medications we might have, but if there were medications, we would.
Jane, you need to mute yourself.
I just got my mic and I was trying to figure out who was talking and I went ahead and muted it.
Okay. Alrighty. So I don't see Allison. She'll let me know if she's here. And Mark says hello to everybody. His microphone is not working. Hopefully everybody saw that. Moving on, Principal Tiffin, would you please introduce our student of the month? And then in a few minutes, I will ask Luke to come up and chat with us.
I would love to. Thank you, President Sue and fellow Rotarians. It's my honor to introduce South Salem High School's Student of the Month for the category of service above self. And in fact, when writing this student's letter of recommendation for college, in the very first sentence, I commented on the fact that he serves others for the right reasons and that he truly understands the importance of contributing to one's community. He will talk about the nonprofit that he created with a couple of his friends, and he'll also talk about his leadership of our service-oriented Key Club, which he has kept active this year despite multiple challenges. He is on track to be a valedictorian and an international baccalaureate diploma recipient. So please welcome Luke Clifton.
Very good. Great.
Thank you,
Luke. There you go. And I'll call you up here, like I mentioned, I'll call you up here in just about 4 minutes and ask you to chat with the club. So thanks for joining us today, Luke. I'm going to hand it off to Dale Penn for bell ringers.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay right now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, we have a couple bell ringers, and I think we also have one or two from the floor. So just as a reminder that folks are able to pay for their bell ringers on our website. Thank you very much. So we're going to start off with myself as the first bell ringer. I'm ringing the bell to celebrate the beginning of the 2021 Oregon legislative session, which officially kicked off yesterday. And I wanted to extend my commiseration to my fellow Rotarian lobbyists like Tammy and Ozzy and Bruce and Chuck, and many of you also who represent cities and counties and in other ways interact with the legislature, who, despite us having a virtual session, we will be burning the midnight oil over the next 6 months. So I'm ringing the bell for all of you. Please ring the bell. And then Pam Lassen is ringing the bell 5 times to apologize for the Zoom link connection problem at last week's meeting. Pam had changed the password to the Rotary's email account, not knowing that the password was also used for the Zoom account. A special thank you to President Sue, Jessica Nissen, and Brenna Backham for quickly and calmly correcting this problem. Please ring the bell for Pam.
Did you say 5 times?
5 times.
Oh, well, Pam.
Fantastic. And then I believe we have, let's see from chat, I think Warren, you have a bell ringer. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, Dale, make sure you post the link for where we pay. I always use that to help remind me to get the money in, but I always do pay, and I know it's well worth Tim just sent out a statement on how much we have given over this last year in bell ringers, and we did a fair amount from this family. I'm ringing the bell today. My wife and I, we've been under construction now for 5 years, remodeling our house. And this week we finally got our kitchen counters back again. We now have granite countertops instead of pieces of T111 that was cut and just kind of laid there. Lenny, you're in the background?
Yeah.
Ring the bell. Oh.
Always good to have the kitchen back, right?
Slowly, the sink is in place, but is not connected. It looks like you want to use it, but there's no water, there's no drain.
Oh gosh, don't use it. Don't use it.
All right, and President Sue, we have, thank you very much, Warren. We have a bell ringer from Mary.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I have actually two bell ringers I'd like to make. One is I would like to invite all of our members to watch the video of the Youth Poet Laureate, Amanda Gorman, who gave an incredibly inspirational poem today at the inauguration of our new president. It humbled me to know how wonderful and how huge the spirit of America can be, and to have such a young voice speak with such wisdom and such hope and such determination. So please take the 3.5 minutes to listen to her poem, The Hill We Climb. My second bell ringer is a bell ringer for our guest speaker, Mauricio Collada. Dr. Collada is a miracle worker in his own right and has saved both my neck, literally, and saved my husband's neck. And so I just want to ring the bell and thank him for keeping us upright and still causing trouble everywhere we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think that is it. I don't see any other hands raised.
All right, thank you, Dale, and thank you everyone that rang the bell today. So I want to hand it off to past District Governor Renee Campbell to share an exciting announcement with all of us.
Okay, thank you, President Sue. When we met on November 11th, we shared with you a $100,000 matching challenge from the Salem Foundation, Larry and Jeanette Epping Family Fund, to help us across the finish line with the Jerry Frank Salem Rotary Amphitheater. So I share with you today that we have met that challenge. Not only did we meet it, but $91,354 of it came from our club members. And this brings the total commitments from our club to over $1 million. 3 more of our Salem clubs also took advantage of the challenge to make their pledges to this regional Rotary Centennial project. But wait, there's more. You may recall when we were just under the $3 million mark, Portland Rotarian Al Jubitz contributed $27,000 from the Jubitz Family Foundation to help us reach that milestone. Many of us know of Al's dedication to the peace area of focus. And he was one of the founders of the Rotary Action Group for Peace that's headquartered in Portland. His interest in the messaging surrounding the facility began those conversations that resulted in the words representing the 4-way test being embedded in the concrete plinths, forming the foundation of the structure. But they are definitely the foundation of Rotary, but they are also the foundation of true, fair, friendly community with goodwill to all. On a sunny day in mid-December, Al came to visit the site, and he saw the first of those plinths shortly after the forms were removed. Anyone who visits the site is impressed with the scope of the project and the promise of the beauty beginning to take shape. Al was no exception, and before he left, he had personally pledged an additional $100,000 to the project. But wait,
There's more. With Al's pledge, gifts from our sister clubs, donations from numerous others, and meeting the matching challenge, we have met our $4 million goal. Let that sink in for a minute. Think back to early 2016. An idea germinates and it begins to sprout and grow into a dream of a legacy gift to our community. That big dream is becoming a reality. Ken said early on that fundraising would be the easy part. Well, I don't know about that, but it is sweet relief indeed to see that phase of the project in the rear view mirror. The money's not all in the bank yet, but we are confident the pledges will come through. If you weren't able to attend the huddle at the park last week, please make it a point to go and see the progress. The plinths are poured, the arches are coming next, and I'll save the construction updates for others to tell. Save the weekend of July 23rd and 24th for our 2-day grand opening events, and stay tuned for more details on that. It's taken all of us working together to get to this point. And we owe 1,000 thanks to Barry and Ken for their vision, their tireless dedication, and keeping us on task. I am so proud to be a member of this club that gets things done. When we put our heads together and we commit to something, watch out, because good things are going to get done. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think that deserves not just hand waves, but a standing ovation and round of applause for all. That's amazing. Well done and thank you. So exciting. So next I want to welcome Luke back to the stage, Luke. And we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm super grateful for this award for my volunteerism, and I want to thank everybody for your time today. My name is Luke Clifton, and I am a senior this year at Zoom High School. Sorry, I make that joke with everybody. I actually go to South Salem High School, and ironically, I used to like doing Zoom, but that was for a week back in September. It's gotten a little bit old. Despite the pandemic, which has been hard for students and adults alike, my two friends, Isha Pranav and myself, started a nonprofit called Connect Oregon Students. We offer peer support and tutoring services to students statewide K through 12, as well as in Northern California and Southwest Washington. The three of us have even worked with the United States Department of Education and the Oregon Department of Education. One of the most exciting things that we experienced this summer was when Kate Brown tweeted about our nonprofit. Despite us getting caught in her Twitter hate comments, we did get a few good jobs out of the audience. But my favorite experience out of everything was meeting with the family from Portland back in December, who had been teaching their kids from scratch how to read, write, and everything. With the help of two of our tutors, one of their kids can now read fluently, and the other improved his grades from F's to A's, not from A's to F's. But I still catch myself missing life before the pandemic, naturally. I miss seeing my teachers, I miss the clubs I was involved in, and I miss my friends. Hopefully soon, it'll be safe to go back, not to put any pressure on Mrs. Tiffin. But what I do not miss pre-pandemic is leaving my house 10 minutes before the bell rang for school and being almost but never actually late. I should blame that on my bad time management, but naturally I blame it on the IB classes, being Key Club president, and being Model UN president, and whatever else I'm involved in. I seriously hate to pontificate about the leadership roles I'm in, but they told me that I had to brag in this speech. None of the stuff I was ever involved in was for college or done in vain. I genuinely love to volunteer and give back to the community. I used to go to Catholic school, and that is one of the things they instilled in me, along with to never, ever, ever ask a teacher to use the restroom during chapel. And while I might have been tired and late to school, I'm glad that my peers and I could create change. The things I was able to accomplish over these last 4 years would have never been feasible had I not gone to South Salem High School, met great people, and gotten the help I got from Mrs. Tiffin and so many other teachers. I hope to keep up my volunteerism during the next chapter in my life, as I finally committed to Stanford University next year. But don't ask me what I'm going to study. That's way too complex for me to answer. Thank you again for your time, and I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Great. Thank you so much, Luke. Between what you shared with us and what Ms. Tiffin shared about all your important work, we look forward to seeing how you continue to shine and grow and excel at Stanford with whatever you're doing. And maybe you'll have to come back and explain your major to us when it's time, right? So
Yeah, I totally will do that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll know soon.
Okay. And in your honor, you'll be receiving a Rotary Challenge coin as well as a certificate in honor of your being recognized as Student of the Month for service above self. So well done, Con. Well done, Luke. Well done. We're excited for your future.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is new member induction. So Connor Wrighton, if you want to join me. It's great. So first off, I'll read Connor's bio. I am actually Connor's sponsor, so you don't have to wonder why somebody else isn't here with us. So a little bit about Connor. Connor Wrighton serves as Northwest Naturals Government and Community Affairs Manager for the Mid-Willamette Valley. He has been in this role for just over 1 year as he attempts to fill the larger shoes of fellow Rotarian Bruce Anderson. Connor is technically a native of Washington, D.C., where he was born while his father served as a staffer in the Oregon Congressional Delegation. However, he considers himself entirely Oregonian after spending most of his childhood growing up in the Beaverton area. Since graduating from the University of Portland, he has worked on several statewide political campaigns as a staffer for an Oregon senator in Washington, D.C., and in a public affairs role at a Portland-based firm. He entered the energy industry in 2016 in a government affairs role with the Northwest Gas Association. In this role, he led advocacy efforts to reduce our region's climate footprint through the use of emerging gas technology. In service of this goal, he founded the Northwest Alliance for Clean Transportation in 2017 to advocate alongside the Northwest Gas Association for replacing medium and heavy duty diesel trucks and buses with natural gas vehicles. Wow. His wife, Molly, is a teacher in the Salem-Keizer School District, and they are joined as new Salem residents by their 18-month-old daughter, Ellen. Oh, he told me how to say it. Elin. Did I get it? Okay. Elin. He spelled it for me phonetically and I still blew it. The Wrighton family has spent much of their time in Salem under quarantine, but that hasn't dampened their enthusiasm for this community nor their excitement at being here. So Connor, through your membership in Rotary, you can build lifelong friendships and join forces with like-minded people around the world who desire to make a difference in their communities. Our club is made up of leaders and potential leaders who are inspired by the motto, service above self. As Rotarians, we have all pledged to uphold the highest ethical standards, subscribe to the object of Rotary, and live by the four-way test. Regular attendance at our weekly meetings is an important part of your membership, but Rotary is so much more than just a lunch club. As you become more involved in our club, you'll begin to understand the power of Rotary through expanded friendships and involvement in your choice of many committees that we offer. As you build those friendships and contribute to our impact here and around the world, you will truly understand what it means to be a member of this club and one of the 1.2 million Rotarians worldwide. We are a vibrant, action-oriented club, as you can tell from Renee's presentation a few minutes ago. And as such, we expect you to roll up your sleeves and get involved. Therefore, Connor, as the newest member of our club, do you pledge to uphold the four-way test, to serve on at least 2 committees, and to contribute to the club in every way that you can?
I do.
Awesome. And fellow Rotarians, do you pledge to warmly welcome Connor into our club and to offer him your full support in all that we do? So please welcome Connor as our newest Rotarian. That's great. Do you want to say we're like a minute ahead of schedule? Connor, do you want to just say anything about joining the club? Or I'm putting you on the spot.
No, that's all right. I'm excited to be a part of the club, and I'm excited by the fact that there are over 60 people here, even though we're all on Zoom. So I'm just excited to get to the opportunity to meet everybody in person when that's allowable again. And you know, being a part of this community has been pretty amazing over the last year, and we've been really struck by the warmness of the Salem community, and I am excited to further that with the Rotary group as well.
Perfect. Well, we're looking forward to getting better acquainted and helping you dig into all that we do. So again, welcome. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up is our program. So I want to hand it off to Cindy to introduce our program and our speaker.
Got it. Hi, everyone. Cindy Lanasar, Salem Health Community Relations Liaison here. First, I'd like to introduce our head table. Our first Rotarian is Claudia Vorse, Rotarian extraordinaire, who serves our club in many ways and is willing and eagerly arranges our fun, diverse, and interesting vocational tours. Next, I'd like to introduce Teresa Lulay, owner and agent of a State Farm Insurance business here in town. Teresa is a frequent flyer of our vocational tour scene and was at our Cubanisimo experience about a year and a half ago. She is also a friend of our speaker. Finally, I'd like to introduce Holly Berry, our club's official sommelier. Holly is a founding member of the Winers, and she knows a lot about wine. She is also a patient and had her hand carpal tunnel surgery done by Dr. Collada. Could everybody please welcome the head table? Next, Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mauricio Collada. Today's presentation is about his amazing and entertaining life, as he will tell it. Mauricio moved to the United States as a child with his parents and 4 siblings. Fast forward many years, he obtained his medical degree from the University of South Florida College of Medicine. He interned at the University of Southern California School of Medicine. Then he did his residency at Louisiana State University Medical Center and did his fellowship training at the University of California in San Francisco. Dr. Collada is a neurosurgeon and has clinical interests in the central nervous system traumas and tumors, spine care management, and population health management. We are very lucky to have his skill here at Salem Health since 1983. In his personal life, he owns the Cubanisimo Winery with his wife, Deborah. They enjoy traveling, spending time with their extended family, children, friends. Mauricio relishes Latin and jazz music, dancing, the Blazers, go Blazers, and riding his motorcycle. Several of us had the privilege of going to Cubanisimo for a vocational tour, as I had mentioned, about a year and a half ago. And this is where Dr. Collada shared his story in the most entertaining way. I know that you will all really enjoy the presentation today. Please help me welcome Dr. Mauricio Collada.
Well, thank you so very much for that wonderful introduction, Cindy. President Sue, thank you to you and the Rotarians for having me here. I hope your gamble works out. I should start first by wishing you all a happy new year and hoping that 2021 puts the 2020 experience way behind. Let me start off by letting you guys know that I am humbled to having you listen to my story, knowing that I'm facing a bunch of success stories of their own. And it's been heartwarming to see so many of my friends in this Rotary meeting here. But let me get going. I know time is an issue. I was born in Cuba in 1953. My father was an artist, was a painting artist, and then decided to go into commercial art once he had a family. He succeeded in doing outdoor advertising, floats, taking floats in Cuba and the carnivals, of which there were many, doing outside decorations for the city of Havana. We lived comfortably, and my mom was part of the project that he did. After Castro, many changes came into place. Schools became indoctrination camps. I was taken out of my school. There was a constant sense of fear. There was always concerns in the faces of my parents and my family. One night in 1961, after the Bay of Pigs invasion, 8 militiamen entered our house, offered my father the option of either managing his 2 companies or to lose them. The next day was the last day my father visited his company. And unbeknown to me, that day was the day after was when they started making plans to leave the country. My 4 siblings and I were told early in 1962 that we were going to go on vacation to visit our relatives in Florida. And vacation goes on. We did leave on this vacation. We were told we had to leave everything behind except for our luggage. At the airport, however, we had a nice horrific scene where my father was told that since he had sold the car 2 years earlier without the state's permission, he had to either reproduce the car or the money. So imagine the scene. We're all tense. We're leaving for Florida. We're leaving our homeland. And at the last second, my family presented with this. My mother was in hysterics. My father advised that he would find a way. And so we did leave that day, and my father did find a way and joined us a few days later. So that was a dramatic transition. We then got to the USA, where I expected the streets to be paved with gold. I expected the Americans to be a super race. I had always been raised with the thought, hey, you know, those Americans, they think of everything. Fortunately, they were not a super race, and fortunately, I saw how similar we were to the Americans, and that was a good thing. At the outset of the U.S., as you can imagine, as any immigrant, we were very poor. We stayed and lived with our uncles. The Catholic Church did help us, and eventually we had an unfurnished house. We slept on mats. This house soon became our proud home, however, because we started refurbishing old furniture that we found in neighborhood piles, and we started getting ongoing help from the church itself. One of the things that's in my mind is that we did get a lot of help at the time with the Cuban refugee program, and they provided us powdered milk, powdered eggs, powdered oatmeal, processed cheese, and cans of Spam. And for months, that's what we lived on. As the older brother, I had to calm my siblings who were always complaining, but it was hard to make these offerings interesting. We did endure nonetheless. Our father took the bus with a collection of paintbrushes and went on to Miami to do sign painting. And eventually, he worked for a used car dealership that gave us a painter with a car with only front seats. We would use it to go window shopping and visit the different parts of the city. Today, however, this car would be unheard of, since my father drove with my mother holding my infant brother and my little sister Miriam in the front seats. And my twin sisters and I sat in the back in very thin lawn chairs that were wired through holes at the bottom of the chassis. Even though this may sound sort of horrific, trust me that we had a tremendous amount of fun with that makeshift car. One of the gifts I think my siblings and I had through all the hardships was that in our house there was always humor. We fed off the jokes that my father and mother made of our circumstances, always thinking there was going to be an opportunity to improve. And the second gift was that I never heard resentment or regret about our new life and our situation. Those were things that were formative without a doubt. I learned my work ethics from my father, and I did all sorts of work from childhood on, selling newspaper, vegetables, anything that I could do to help. I earned any money for my own clothing. Even though we did get handouts from the church, I have to tell you, those were the oddest colors and the oddest designs. So I was desperate to do something to get my own clothing, and I did do so. Eventually, my father did go on to form sign business, Christmas decoration business, later on even a decoration business that has served me well as I helped design my house. These businesses, from the age of 11 on, after I learned the language, was his interpreter and was his main person throughout all the work endeavors. I worked interpreting for government officials, CEOs, and over time developed a comfort level in dealing with these type of folks, and this has served me well. Between work and my difficulty at first with the language, I didn't pay much attention to schoolwork. I seemed to end up in detention quite frequently. But eventually I found a teacher in detention class that paid attention to me and started encouraging me to read increasingly more difficult books. So by the end of the 5th grade, I read all Hemingway's book. My favorite still, The Old Man of the Sea. Mr. Cortez, wherever he is, I'm forever grateful to him. In Miami, I worked each day after school and on weekends helping the family, but as a family, we did start enjoying the beach, doing a lot of window shopping, strolling through Miami Beach hotels. And we had great, wonderful experiences dining out at McDonald's. Once learning the language and feeling comfortable within the language, I started finding that academic success came relatively easy. And I started directing myself towards college and eventually towards medicine. My interest in medicine came from all the stories my family repeatedly told of an American-trained Cuban physician who had saved one of my sister's life. And as a child, I was very impressed how one person could make such a difference in a family. How this doctor was so revered and remembered by my family left a lasting impression. So my parents were suddenly hearing me wanting to go to medical school, but they encouraged me, but they also felt that my temperament was never going to lead to a doctor. And so there were constant jokes about the fact I could do anything, but that I didn't have the temperament. This was also further colored by the fact that we didn't have the finances. It was when my parents started seeing me filling out forms, applying for scholarships of every type possible, spending time writing essays to compete for funds, and filling out financial forms on a regular basis, that they actually thought I was really interested in becoming a doctor. Eventually, and it seemed to my parents miraculously, I was admitted to the University of Miami for pre-med program. My ordeals at the University of Miami were many. I did still have to work for my father. I wanted to do some work in the healthcare field so I could show my commitment and my love for that field. And then there was always great competition, competing and looking for funds and scholarships, in addition to trying to have some sort of semblance of a social life. I reflected often in those years when my now grown children complain about the stress of having to fly to different cities to see different colleges and having all the funds they had for schooling. It was while attending the University of Miami, however, that in one of my biochem class, I became interested in fermentation and the art of making wine. Soon I was making wine at home out of carboys, out of fruits that were available to me, mangoes and bananas. And with these wonderful fruits, I made some incredible high alcohol wines that led to wonderful fun parties at our house. I got through pre-med and went on to medical school. And I appreciate the intro, but and I went to University of South Florida Medical School in Tampa, Florida. There, the costs were quite high, but I was determined to go through it and find scholarships along the way. And I did it, and I did quite well. When I started medical school, one thing I did do is I shifted from trying to have a balance of some semblance of social life to just becoming priest-like in my dedication. I didn't know if I could do it, and I was now competing with very, very bright folks. And I can tell you that for 2 years, I was indeed priest-like. But fortunately, that all changed once I started rotating through the hospital. Through my training, I was in love with all the medical specialties. I loved medicine in every way. I even toyed with becoming a psychiatrist due to my fascination with the mind, philosophy, ethics, and religion, and the likes. But as I rotated through the field, I realized that I wasn't made for that. That would kill my spirit. It was a very challenging specialty. The decision to neurosurgery came gradually, but also due to my fascination for the technical challenges of the field. Eventually, I was on my way as I went to do my internship at the Medical University of South Carolina, where I learned a lot. It was a fantastic learning experience, but I have to simply just touch the fact that even though I had understood a soft bias in South Florida, it all paled to what I encountered in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'll leave it at that. I have gone back to Charleston, South Carolina, and things have changed. But one key thing that did come out of my experience in Charleston was that I was connected with a friend who came out of a Lebanese, French, American family who were very much involved in the wine business. And then I started going with him to the different wine tastings he organized. And there's where I developed a passion for Pinot Noir as my favorite varietal. Then I went on to neurosurgery. Neurosurgery, fortunately for me, the neurosurgical residency was in New Orleans, Louisiana. This place matched me and my temperament quite nicely. I did work hard. If anybody knows anything about surgical residency, you know this is very hard work. And in neurosurgery, I worked an average of 120-hour week without a doubt. But when I was off, I was off in New Orleans now. And I certainly learned the art of letting the good times roll. As to wines in neurosurgery residency, well, obviously I couldn't afford them, but at least now I was being invited to parties with other established doctors and other friends in the area. And I started learning that I did have an affinity for fine wines and fine foods. But even though this was the case, and I had by now developed a passion for reading about wine and the history of wine, I never ever visualized having a winery. After finishing neurosurgery residency, I now had to become a real doctor. I had now finally ended my training gig, and I interviewed throughout Louisiana. But the neurosurgeons there were remarkably stuffy and remarkably egotistical. And I was in a funk at my chairman's program alone, concerned about my future, when my attention was drawn in an absent-minded fashion, and I saw this to be true, to an orange paper in a garbage can. I pulled it, opened it, and it was a flyer advertising for a position in Eugene, Oregon. Since they offered to fly me out there, and since I needed some time off, since my wife at the time's brother lived in Oregon, I thought, why not? All I knew about Oregon was its capital, Salem, that there were hippies here, and that the Rashnishis were made part of the news at the time. And that was my thoughts coming in. When I landed in Portland, even on a rainy day, and as I drove to Eugene, the mountains and the greenery enchanted me. And after my interviews and seeing the pace of life, I became convinced Oregon would be my future place to try and make a home. And indeed, it is where I started my practice and where I started my family. My neurosurgical practice in Salem seemed like a dream, and I fell in love with West Salem, with the ability of feeling like I was outside the city in 15 minutes, and within 15 minutes be back at work. Though there was life and excitement in my work, there was also the mastering of multiple aspects of private practice. The politics of medical practice are pretty interesting and unique. And when I started navigating the hospital hierarchy, I was impressed that in those days, the one who was listened to the most among the physicians were the ones who admitted the most patients to the hospital. It was a different time. It was what I call the dinosaur days of medicine. From the first day I started in practice, I knew that I wasn't going to compete in that realm. My focus was not really income competition, but rather patients and the focus of medicine itself. And instead, what I did is from the very early days, started engaging with Salem hospital administrators. And this not only served me well, but served them well, I believe. Through my increasing involvement in medicine, I still felt that there was something I needed to fill it with. And it was in this scenario, and with my previously stated passion for wine, that I started reading about how Oregon was breaking the international barriers of the wine industry with the high quality Pinot Noir. And I immediately started constructing a myth for myself, and that was that maybe it wasn't just for the family, it wasn't just for the practice of neurosurgery, but maybe I came here also to get involved with the wine industry, and I let this myth take hold. I got to know many of the folks, many winemakers and many winery owners, and I went on with that dream. At one of the meetings in 1987 in McMinnville, the International Pinot Noir Festival, I sat next to Robert Druhan, well-renowned winemaker from Burgundy, France. And he was at that time that I was convinced, with him thinking that Oregon was special, that I needed to put my hat into the fray. And then I started going ahead and looking for land that would serve the purpose of a vineyard, which I felt was the way to start. While at the same time, I was married at the time to a lady fascinated by the equestrian arts, so we had a combination development. And it was then that I learned about zoning rules. I somehow thought that by buying a piece of property, and now this property was mine, that I could just go ahead and build what I wanted and do what I wanted. I woke up and I learned my ways, and I eventually passed all the regulations, and that's when I started putting our vineyards in. Our vineyards were planted in 1989. I then went ahead and continued focusing on the vineyard, which is where you make the wine, and learning while at the same time making all the conceivable mistakes that can be made when you put a city boy and you try to make him a farmer. To give you an idea how bad things were, the fourth year you expect to have out of an acre parcel at least a few tons. I ruined the vineyard with powdery mildew and ended up with 2 buckets of grapes. And that's when I knew I needed help, and that's when I started learning about the art of delegating. One evening, a friend of mine, Tony Visconti, came in after seeing me come back from spraying, and he said a phrase that never left me, and that was that if I didn't learn to delegate smartly, the aspects of managing the land and the vineyard, that I would become the slave of my estate, not the owner of the estate. And that had an impact, and I started doing so. I started then working with different young men that I would train, and in 1990 did find my current vineyard supervisor, Raul Torres, who to this day I've seen him grown, and I've been able to help that family become a very successful family. He's been a joy to have seen come out of the endeavor that is now Cubanisimo Vineyards. The other thing that made it possible was that I went ahead and happened to decide to make the winery possible. That is, when in 2003, with my children now grown and out of the house, I wanted to have the full experience. And Rob Stewart, who was the winemaker for ERAF, was breaking out from ERAF, wanted to make his own wines, and called me and said that he would be able to help me with my dream, if he would, as long as I would also help with some of the equipment. And this is how we moved forward. This is how Cubanisimo got started. The next thing was trying to rationalize the whole expense and the whole time of adding Cubanisimo Vineyards to everything else I did. But the thing that made sense is knowing what was important to me, what was something that filled my life. And what I started doing and recognizing is that it would be a great match or a great formula to marry my commitment to make the best possible wine out of our vineyards with celebrating my Cuban culture, which is what gave rise to Cubanisimo Vineyards. We now have a 15-acre facility. We make the great Oregon Pinot Noir. We make Rosé of Pinot Noir, Rosado of Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and we celebrate it in an ambient reminiscent of the Cuban culture. And I say reminiscent because we are in Oregon. But we do serve it with a setting that's very reminiscent of a Cuban cafe with good Cuban Latin music, usually serving Caribbean food and other venues to kind of create excitement. My soulmate and friend, wife, Deborah, and I work together to run the winery along with our manager, Sam Wood, and our supervisor, Raul Torres, and Stuart still makes our wines. My professional neurosurgery practice has been an endless source of pride, never ceased to recognize how fortunate I have been. But I'm also humbled on a regular basis by the many patients who have trusted their lives to me. To this day, I still have passion for neurosurgery and have been fortunate to establish a strong neurosurgical organization with my other neurosurgical colleagues called Capital Neurosurgery Specialists. I had always wanted to leave neurosurgery in Salem in a much improved way from when I arrived, and I believe I have succeeded in that. My commitment to my family is strong as ever, and I'm happy to tell you that I'm fortunate to have successful grown-up kids, which I consider to be the true legacy. And in addition, now I'm a grandfather. Furthermore, by marrying Deborah, I've been blessed by having her two children in our lives, and this has been an endless source of joy. My commitment to that institution that has been my professional home, Salem Health, continues to be strong, and I have been so proud of the evolution of Salem Health. I think that you all need to know, if you don't already, that we are blessed with having this vital resource in our community. It has been run in the past and is being run beautifully nowadays, and it has evolved in a fantastic direction. Despite COVID, I am and have been enjoying my life. I do to this day pinch myself and marvel at the journey of that early young exile immigrant who did all he could to help his family, but now to have had the distinction of being able to talk to a presentation of what I consider to be my city luminaries. And with that, I end my talk and I welcome questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Collada. That was just fascinating. And can't wait to be out to your vineyard when it's sit outside and enjoy it. We have time for a couple questions. And I'm going to take a look in the chat, or if folks are raising their hands. So maybe I'll do a starter question for you. And Dr. Collada is this sounds like a really kind of a silly question, but how has your venue changed during COVID? Have you been able to stay open the entire time, to be outside? If you had to close and then open back up, what does that look like?
Well, through the summer, because we have the space, we were able to do outdoor events and with the right spacing and all the appropriate protections. Since we've had to lock down more severely, what we've done is put a vinyl, like a tent type ambience outside. And with some heaters, we've been able to do some outdoor tastings. So we're still doing it, but we'll start opening every day once again, using that outside tent for now in February.
Very good. All right. So John McCulley is wondering if you have returned to Cuba.
Yes, I have. I returned to Cuba. I made at first, I had a lot of difficulty going back to Cuba. I have to tell you that honestly. I cannot tell you the sentiments that I have carried for years about that regime. But finally, in when I turned 40 in around 2002, 2003, I decided to go back, and have been going back every 2 to 3 years. In fact, hold a Cuban passport. And it's always, my trips back there are always a bittersweet experience.
Thank you.
Looks like Ron has a question too.
Okay, Ron, go for it. Oh,
Ron,
you're
we
muted.
can't hear you.
Oh, I see his question, I think.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, there it is. Thank you very much, Dr. Collada. I was in Cuba 13 months ago. It was the best country I've ever visited. But there's just a lot of hardships caused by our policies towards Cuba. What do you think they should be, and where do you think they're going from this point forward?
Ron, I tend to have an understanding of what really has kept the hardships going. And although the external
I have to feel like all these news people have an intelligent looking book board, usually with my books.
The nature of the regime. In Cuba, you only advance if you're connected to the Cuban elite, to the Cuban government. So it's very hard to tell you what would be the relationships that would shift that government into truly being more responsible to its people and more open to its people. Right? It's a dictatorship, and how you deal with a dictatorship is a challenge to which I don't have the question. I mean, I don't have the answer to that question.
Thank you, Dr. Collada. Again, this was really fascinating and opened a lot of windows for us into your life. So we really appreciate that. And so in honor of your time with us today, we are going to make a donation in your name to our very own Salem Rotary Foundation. So thank you again. And I was going to look, you were competing great with the inauguration, because we have a great, we had a great turnout today. So next week's program is Estate Planning 101, and that is with our very own Ryan Collier. Thank you, Ryan. And Linda Bednarz will be our program chair. And just last note for next week's meeting is past President Russ will chair our meeting. So Russ, thank you in advance for helping me out there. So with that, we're a wrap. Everyone enjoy your day. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week. So take care, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.